throwaway account because my dad's friends and coworkers know my main. I'm a 24-year-old guy, and until a few months ago, I thought my life was normal, stable even. I had two loving parents, a little sister who annoyed me, but who I'd die for, and a pretty uneventful childhood in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio. My dad was the kind of man everyone admired. He worked hard, provided for the family, coached my little league team when I was a kid, and never missed a birthday or a school play. He had this aura of reliability, the guy who could fix anything, handle any problem, calm any storm. But I guess that's the problem with putting people on pedestals. When they fall, it's a long way down. It all started this summer. I had just moved back home for a couple of months between jobs. I'd quit my last job in Chicago and was planning to move to Seattle for a new one. But I had this weird instinct to come home for a bit, save money, and spend time with family before the big move. It's almost funny now. I thought it would be a calm few months. Instead, it ended up being the most chaotic time of my life. My dad started acting weird. He was always a little private, but now he was secretive. His phone, which used to sit face up on the counter, was suddenly always face down. He'd step outside to take calls. He started coming home late. Not crazy late, but late enough that Mom started asking questions. He had an explanation for everything. Traffic was bad, had to help a client, stopped by the store. But there was this new distance in him, like he was physically here, but mentally somewhere else. Mom noticed, of course. She's sharp like that. But instead of confronting him, she just shut down. I caught her staring at him a few times when she thought no one was looking. It was the kind of look you give someone you love deeply but don't recognize anymore. One Saturday, I borrowed Dad's car because mine was in the shop. He tossed me the keys like always, told me to fill up the tank, and didn't seem to care. But when I got into the car, I noticed something off immediately, a faint smell of vanilla perfume. It wasn't Mom's scent. I'd grown up smelling her perfume, and this wasn't it. On the passenger seat was a tiny gold hair clip, not my sister's either. She has dark hair, and this one had a strand of blonde stuck in it. I remember sitting there for a minute, staring at that hair clip, my stomach twisting into knots. It's not like my first thought was, Dad's cheating, but it was definitely something. That night, after dinner, Dad said he was heading to the gym. Mom didn't say anything, just gave a small nod. But after he left, I looked at her and said, "You don't believe that, do you?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Believe what?" "That he's actually going to the gym." She tried to brush it off, but her voice trembled when she said, "Of course I do, honey." I don't know what came over me, but I decided to follow him. Yeah, it sounds immature and invasive, and maybe it was. But something inside me had to know. I waited 10 minutes, then got in my car and followed his route. He didn't go to the gym. He drove across town, about 30 minutes away, into a completely different suburb. Not a sketchy place. Actually, a really nice one. He pulled into a quiet street, parked in front of a 2-story white house with blue shutters, and walked up to the door like he belonged there. And then, I swear to God, a woman came out. Younger than Mom, maybe mid-30s, blonde hair, casual clothes. She smiled like she'd been expecting him. Then, they hugged. Not a friendly hug. A familiar, intimate hug. I sat there in my car, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. They went inside. I don't know how long I sat there, just staring at that house. At one point, I saw movement through the window. A little girl ran up to him and hugged him around the waist. He picked her up, laughed, and kissed her on the forehead. I swear it was like watching a movie where the main character doesn't realize he's the villain. My dad, the man I thought I knew, had another family. I didn't confront him that night. I couldn't. I drove home shaking, parked outside for 15 minutes, then walked in like nothing happened. Mom was watching TV, pretending to be fine, and I realized maybe she did know, or at least suspected. That night I barely slept. I kept seeing that little girl's face. She looked maybe 6 or 7. Blonde, bright eyes, called him Dad, without hesitation. The next morning, I checked his car. He had a receipt from a cafe near that neighborhood. 2 coffee orders, one with almond milk, something neither Mom nor I drink. So, it wasn't a one-time thing. He'd been seeing them regularly. A few days later, I was alone in the kitchen when Dad came in. He seemed happy, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. I asked him how work was. He smiled and said, "Busy, but good. You know how it is." He even patted me on the shoulder like everything was fine. That fake normality made me angry. "Where were you on Saturday?" I asked. He froze, just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. "The gym," he said quickly. "Why?" "I drove by. Didn't see your car." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a second I thought he might just tell me everything. But he didn't. He just gave a tight smile and said, "You must have gone at the wrong time." Then he walked away. And just like that, I knew. He was lying. A week later, Mom broke down. I came home from running errands and found her sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of papers in front of her. She looked pale, hollowed out. I asked what was wrong, and she just pushed one of the papers toward me. It was a credit card statement. There were charges she didn't recognize, restaurants, flowers, even a hotel. She whispered, "He's cheating on me, isn't he?" I didn't know what to say. I couldn't lie, but I also didn't want to destroy her completely, so I told her the truth, or part of it, that I'd followed him, that I saw him with someone else. She didn't cry at first. She just sat there, completely still, like her world had stopped spinning. Then she whispered, "There's more, isn't there?" I nodded slowly. "She has a kid," I said, "and Dad, he looked like her father." That's when she broke. The next few days were chaos. Mom confronted Dad, and I could hear them yelling through the walls. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but it was impossible not to. He tried to deny it at first, then finally admitted it. Yes, he'd been seeing someone else for years. Yes, the little girl was his. And no, he hadn't planned to tell us. He said he didn't want to ruin the family. Can you imagine that? He had already ruined it. Mom threw him out that night, but that wasn't the end. Not even close. A week later, I got a message request on Instagram from someone named Lily. Her message said, "Hey, you don't know me, but I think we might be related." My heart dropped. I opened her profile. And there she was, the woman from the house. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at her profile, scrolling through pictures of her and the little girl, smiling, happy, completely unaware of the storm she had caused. Finally, I messaged back, "You're the woman my dad's been seeing?" She replied almost instantly. "Yes, but it's not what you think. Please, can we talk?" I didn't want to meet her, but something about her tone, desperate, sincere, made me curious. We met at a coffee shop a few days later. She looked nervous, like she'd been carrying a secret for years. She said, "I didn't know your dad was married at first. He told me he was divorced." I didn't know if that was true, but she seemed genuine. Then she said something that froze me to my core. "I think your dad's been lying to both of us." That's where things started getting dark, because what she told me next wasn't just about my dad's affair. It was about my family's entire history. And when I learned who her daughter's mother really was, I realized the truth was far more twisted than I could have ever imagined. I remember sitting across from Lily in that cafe, barely able to process what she was saying. My dad had always been the moral compass of our family, the guy who lectured me about honesty, integrity, doing the right thing. And now, here I was, listening to the woman tell me that he'd lied to both of us. I clenched my hands under the table just to stop them from shaking. Lily's eyes were glassy when she said it. When I met him, he told me he was divorced, said his wife left him years ago and that he was rebuilding his life. I wanted to laugh, or scream. Because at that exact time, he was still living with my mom, helping her make dinner, watching movies with us on weekends. I said quietly, "He's been married to my mom for 30 years. She looked like I'd punched her. 30? Yeah. They never separated. Ever. Lily pressed her lips together and nodded slowly. I could see her world collapsing in real time. She took a shaky breath. So, all this time, I was the other woman. I didn't know what to say. There's no script for something like that. Then she dropped another bomb. She told me the little girl, the one I'd seen running into my dad's arms, was named Ella. 7 years old. She adores him, Lily whispered. He's been there since she was born. Every birthday, every Christmas, she calls him Daddy. Something twisted in my chest. Because on those same birthdays and holidays, he was with us. How had he managed to split his life like that? Two families, two sets of lies, two completely different realities. As she kept talking, something started to feel off. Lily said she met him around 8 years ago, which would make sense since Ella was 7, but she mentioned that when they first met, he already seemed familiar with her background, like he knew her family somehow. When I asked what she meant, she said, "He knew my mom's name before I even told him, said she used to work at a clinic or something." That detail didn't seem huge at first, until I thought about it later. Because my grandmother, my dad's mom, did used to work at a clinic. Same small town. Coincidence? Maybe. But something in my gut told me it wasn't. When I got home that day, I confronted Dad. He'd moved into a small apartment across town after Mom threw him out. I didn't even knock. I just walked in. He looked up from the couch, startled. "I met her," I said. He went pale. "Who?" "Lily, the woman you've been lying to, and your daughter." He sank back into the couch, rubbing his temples like he had a migraine. "I can explain," he muttered. "No, you can't. You've been living two lives for years. You lied to Mom. You lied to her. You lied to me." He didn't even deny it. He just whispered, "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," I snapped. "You did mean it. You kept seeing her. You had a kid with her. That doesn't just happen." He finally said, "It's not that simple." And when I asked, "Then what the hell is it?" he looked at me with this haunted expression. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said quietly, "because it's not just about me. It's about you too." I didn't even know what he meant, but I didn't stick around to find out. I left before I said something I'd regret. That night, I couldn't sleep. His words, "It's about you too," kept replaying in my head. What could he possibly mean by that? A few days later, Mom called me, her voice trembling. "He came over." "What? Why?" "To talk." To explain, I drove over immediately. When I got there, she was sitting at the kitchen table again, the same place she'd been when this whole nightmare started. But this time, she wasn't crying. She looked angry. "He told me he had a daughter," she said flatly, "with another woman." "But that's not even the worst part," I swallowed. "What's worse than that?" She hesitated, then said, "He told me that the woman is someone we know." I froze. "What do you mean, we know?" Mom looked at me with hollow eyes. "Her name is Lily Carter." I felt a jolt go through my chest. Carter. That name was familiar. Lily Carter had gone to my high school. She was a few years older than me. I remembered her vaguely. Blonde, friendly, popular. She'd even babysat my sister a few times when we were little. And now she had a child with my father. I could barely breathe. "So she's that Lily?" I stammered. Mom nodded. He said they reconnected years later. He saw her at a fundraiser and things happened. It was like my entire reality split in half. My dad had a kid with someone who used to babysit me. And then I remembered something even worse. When I was 16, I'd had a crush on her. Nothing serious, obviously, just one of those teenage things. She was older, beautiful, kind. I remember once telling Dad I thought she was cute. He laughed, told me to aim high. Now I knew why that laugh had sounded so strange. I drove straight to his apartment again, shaking with anger. He opened the door before I even knocked, like he'd been waiting. "Son!" "Why her?" I snapped. "Why Lily Carter? She babysat us." He flinched. "I didn't plan it. We ran into each other years later. It just happened. Don't you dare say it just happened. You destroyed two families." He looked exhausted, older than I'd ever seen him. "You don't understand? No, you don't understand," I shouted. "You've turned our entire family into a joke. You lied to Mom, to me, to her." He finally raised his voice too. "You think I don't know that? You think I wanted this?" There was silence for a few seconds, then he said something that made my stomach drop. "She wasn't supposed to have the baby." I stared at him. "What?" "She told me she was on birth control. When she got pregnant, she said she'd handle it, but she didn't. And when Ella was born," he trailed off, his face crumpling, "I couldn't abandon her." I just stood there, stunned. So that's what handling it meant to him. Years of deceit, of lies stacked on lies. After that night, I didn't talk to him for weeks. I tried to focus on my move to Seattle, but I couldn't think about anything else. Then one morning, I got an email from Lily. "I know things are messy right now, but I need to talk to you again. Please." "It's important against my better judgment," I agreed. We met at the same cafe. This time she looked more composed, like she'd been crying for days but had finally decided to face the truth. She told me that after our first conversation, she confronted my dad too, and he told her something that didn't make sense. "What did he say?" I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "He said Ella might not actually be his." I blinked. "What?" She nodded. "He told me he had a reason to believe she wasn't his biological daughter." My mind was spinning. "But he's been raising her like she is." "I know." "He said he didn't want to hurt her. But after everything that's happened, I started wondering if he was lying about that too." A week later, Lily messaged me again. She'd done a DNA test, one of those online ancestry kits. "I matched with someone unexpected," she said. When she showed me the results, my blood went cold. There it was, clear as day. Ella had a half-sibling match listed under my name. My name. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe the database glitched, but it wasn't. Ella wasn't my dad's biological daughter. She was mine. I couldn't breathe. Everything around me felt unreal, like the world had tilted on its axis. I looked at Lily, completely frozen. "That's impossible," I whispered. She shook her head, tears spilling down her face. "It's not. The timelines? I didn't even realize it until now." My mind was racing. 8 years ago, before I left for college, there'd been a party. I remembered drinking too much. I remembered Lily being there. She'd just come back to town after college herself. We'd talked for hours that night, and the rest was a blur. I thought nothing happened, but apparently something did. When I confronted him about it, he didn't even act surprised. He just looked at me and said quietly, "I was trying to protect you." "Protect me? You let me believe she was your daughter." He nodded slowly. "Because she needed a father. And because I couldn't let your mother find out. It would have destroyed everything." I stared at him, horrified. "You knew?" He nodded again, tears in his eyes. "I found out years ago. I did a paternity test after she was born. I knew she was yours. I felt sick. So you've been raising my daughter as your own, to cover up what I did?" "I didn't want to ruin your life," he said. "You were so young. You didn't even remember that night. I thought I could fix it. I couldn't process it. I couldn't even feel anything. I was completely numb. My father wasn't just a cheater. He was a liar, a manipulator, and a man who built an entire second life on top of my biggest mistake. He'd made me believe I had a stepsister, when in reality, that stepsister was my daughter. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even look at my phone without feeling like the ground was moving under me. I thought the worst was over when I found out my dad had a secret family, but that wasn't even close to the truth, because the next thing I learned made me question who I even was. It started with an email, not from Lily this time, but from the DNA testing site she had used. I'd agreed to take a test myself, mostly out of curiosity, maybe a bit of denial. I needed proof that all of this wasn't just some sick nightmare. A week later, the results came in, and there it was, staring me right in the face. Close family match detected, half-sibling, Ella Carter. I blinked. Half-sibling? Not possible child. Not no relation. Half-sibling. That didn't make any sense. If Ella wasn't my daughter, and she wasn't just some random kid, then who the hell was she? I called Lily immediately. She answered on the first ring, her voice shaky. "You got it too, didn't you?" "Yeah," I said, "but it says we're half-siblings." "How is that even possible?" There was a long pause on the other end. Then she whispered, "I think your dad lied to both of us again." My heart dropped. "What do you mean?" "I asked him about it," she said. He wouldn't give me a straight answer. Just kept saying, "The past is complicated." I rubbed my temples. "No, this doesn't make sense. My mom isn't her mom. You're her mom. The only other possibility is..." And that's when it hit me. The only way Ella and I could be half-siblings is if we shared a father. My father. I couldn't even speak for a minute. When I finally did, my voice came out hoarse. You're telling me my dad is Ella's biological father? Lily didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, she said, I think so. And I think he's known all along. My knees actually went weak. I had to sit down. All this time, he'd been pretending to be a good guy who made one mistake. But he'd actually fathered a child with someone who used to babysit me. He'd been lying to everyone, playing both sides, pretending to be this perfect husband and father while juggling two entire families. And the craziest part? He probably thought he'd get away with it forever. I didn't want to be the one to tell Mom, but she deserved to know. I went over to her house that evening. She opened the door, looking 10 years older than she did a month ago. Her eyes were tired, her smile forced. What now? She asked weakly. I handed her the printed DNA report. She skimmed it, frowned, then reread the line 3 times. When she finally looked up at me, her eyes were wet. Half-sibling? I nodded. Dad's her biological father. For a second, she didn't move. Then she just broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. She sank into the kitchen chair and covered her face with her hands. I thought I'd cried all my tears already, she whispered, but apparently not. There's no good way to comfort someone who's realizing her entire marriage was a lie. So I just sat there with her, silent. The next few days were chaos. Word got around. I don't even know how. Maybe one of Dad's coworkers, maybe one of Lily's friends, but suddenly everyone knew. Our family became the town's favorite piece of gossip. People stared when Mom went to the grocery store. My sister's friends whispered behind her back. And Dad? He disappeared, quit his job, changed his number, vanished from social media. For someone who built his life around being the dependable guy, he sure ran fast when things got ugly. Lily tried to reach out to Mom. She texted me first. Please tell her I'm sorry. I didn't know he was married. I didn't know who he really was. I believed her. As much as I hated the situation, I could see it in her eyes the last time we spoke. She'd been manipulated just like the rest of us. She'd built her life on a lie that he created. Still, Mom didn't want to hear it. She said, that woman ruined my family, and refused to take her calls. I couldn't blame her. A few weeks later, I saw Ella. It was at the park, completely by accident. She was with Lily, playing on the swings. She saw me and waved, grinning like nothing had ever happened. Hi, she shouted. You're my dad's son, right? I froze. Lily came over quickly, embarrassed. Ella, sweetie, come on. But Ella kept talking. Mom says you're my brother. Isn't that funny? My chest tightened. I managed a small, awkward smile. Yeah, it's kind of funny. When she ran back to the playground, I turned to Lily. Does she know? She shook her head. No, she just thinks you're her big brother. I didn't know how else to explain it. I nodded slowly, and for some reason, that hit harder than anything else. She was innocent, completely innocent. She didn't ask for any of this. I finally found my dad 2 months later. He was staying in some cheap rental 2 towns over. When I knocked on the door, he looked destroyed. Beard overgrown, eyes bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in weeks. What do you want? He asked quietly. The truth, I said. All of it. He sighed, gestured for me to come in, and sat down. I met Lily when she was 21, he began. You were 16. Your mom and I were fighting a lot back then. Money, stress, everything. Lily was kind to me, listened when your mom wouldn't. It wasn't supposed to go anywhere, but... He trailed off. I said nothing. When she got pregnant, I panicked. I didn't want to leave your mom, but I also couldn't walk away from my child. So I tried to live both lives. For 7 years, I snapped. He nodded miserably. I kept thinking I'd end it, but every time I saw Ella, I couldn't. She's my daughter, I stared at him. You mean she's my half-sister? He nodded. Yes, and I'm sorry for everything. For a moment, the silence was deafening. Then I said, you didn't just ruin your marriage. You ruined our trust. None of us will ever see you the same way again. He didn't argue. He just said softly, I know. It's been about 6 months since that conversation. Mom filed for divorce. She's been slowly rebuilding her life. New job, new apartment. therapy. My sister barely talks about Dad anymore. She said she wants to pretend he's dead, which sounds harsh, but I get it. As for me, I still see Ella sometimes. Not as a brother, not really. More like a weird in-between. Lily asked if I wanted to be the part of her life. I said yes, but only if it wouldn't confuse her. She deserves to grow up knowing the truth, just not yet. So, yeah, that's why I'm writing this. Because for the past few months, I've been walking around with this giant secret that I can't tell anyone in real life. I found out my dad had a secret family, then I found out the little girl I thought was my stepsister is actually my half-sister. It sounds like a bad soap opera, but it's my life. And the weirdest part? I'm starting to realize I can't hate Ella for any of it. She's just a kid caught in the middle of adults who lied, cheated, and destroyed everything. A few weeks ago, I went to visit Dad's old house, the one we grew up in. It's empty now. Mom moved out, and it's up for sale. I walked through each room, remembering all the good times, birthdays, holidays, family dinners, and it hit me. Those memories are still mine. Even if the truth changed everything, it doesn't erase the years when we were genuinely happy. I left a photo on the kitchen counter before I locked up. One of me, Mom, and my sister when I was 10. I don't know if Dad will ever see it again, but if he does, maybe he'll remember what he lost. Because he didn't just lose a marriage. He lost a family that once believed in him completely, and that's something you can't rebuild, no matter how many lies you tell.